Hey, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Joseph Coppus, and I'm joined by my guests today, Seth Mendelson and Ryan Sutton of HeadsUpCAN. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe.
Really appreciate it.
So, for those who don't know you, can you give a little bit of information about each of you and why you're interested in helping people with TBIs?
Yep, for sure. So my name's Ryan Sutton. I'm a co-founder of HeadsUpCAN, and we started this journey in 2017, where I actually had my most recent concussion, and Seth and I kind of collaborated on talking about what that experience was like, and kind of he was relaying some information from back when he was in high school, and he went through his concussion and how he kind of felt alienated, and like that the people around him didn't appreciate like what he was going through necessarily. And then I also had similar experiences. So then we just kind of decided, like, I think it's time to do something about it, and we wanted to gear ourselves towards creating a social brand that spread awareness on concussions. So that really just started with us just like learning about concussions a bit more, who to connect with in the industry in Canada, and then we kind of built from there, just with apparel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to kind of build on to that, we met in university, like our first week of university. We had our very first seminar together, and naturally we just started doing a lot of projects in school. And so when Ryan received his concussion in 2017, we started, like he was mentioning, talking about our experiences and realizing that there wasn't really a platform out there that talked about people's stories and, you know, shared experiences. There's a ton of research out there, which is obviously great, but it didn't feel like there was a community approach to help with this invisible injury. So we want to kind of, you know, create something that we personally could resonate with, because we assumed that most people who suffer concussions also kind of went through the same isolation. And it was just a simple, just starting to tell our story with a table in our campus, and then it kind of grew into this huge passion project of ours, which we'll dive into a bit more later. But yeah, it was a very like a simple start, and to see where it is now is really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, as you guys know, this is an invisible disease, and it's sometimes hard to find community and, you know, find other people who are dealing with what you're doing. So it's very fortunate that you found each other, and now you're expanding that to so many other people with your organization. So that's fantastic. So follow-up question, I guess, is what is HeadsUpCAN, and what kind of projects are you guys working on? What kind of stuff are you doing?
So yeah, so HeadsUpCAN is I'll jump in on this one.
Yeah.
HeadsUpCAN is a non-for-profit organization in Canada, and we definitely do a lot of diverse things. But one of our biggest things is, like I mentioned, sharing stories. And the way that we like to do that is through content creation and creating videos for Instagram, just social media platforms, to bring that community approach. And to also create an empathetic approach for people who maybe have never had a concussion and don't really understand that this is more than just a headache, right? There's a lot of mental health complications that can derive from it, and each concussion is so different and so individualized. So to create almost like a page that tells people's stories. So we've done stuff where we've hosted like a charity concert, we had a concussion testimonial where we had a bunch of different students share their stories through YouTube. And then now we've even started our advocates program. So definitely trying to, you know, have an encompassing platform. I think Ryan's internet we may have lost him there. Oh, there he goes.
He's back.
Gee, sorry about that. Yeah, my internet hasn't been the greatest today.
Just talking about how we just launched our advocates program, which I'll let you jump into, Ryan, as it is your baby.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely really excited about that. So I'm not sure, like Seth may have touched upon, we recently became a nonprofit organization. So along with that, we really wanted to kind of have a membership avenue for that. Not necessarily like in like traditional terms, we wanted to have our own spin on it. So this is where the advocate program kind of came about. So we realized that we wanted to share as many people's stories as possible. And the way that we were currently doing that was a concussion testimonial program that we had. But it wasn't necessarily the best avenue, we felt, because it had us, went in to essentially go film and interview people, where it was just, there was a process behind that that was just not necessarily working for us. We love that stuff, but it wasn't the fastest way to get the word out. So we kind of shifted gears and we created this form on our website under our advocates tab that basically connects people to 2 questions. Like at its heart, it's just 2 questions. How have concussions affected your life? And why do you want to become an advocate for concussion awareness? So like 2 very simple, fairly similar questions actually, but they can provide like a really good scope of what or why it matters to people and why or how it has affected their lives. So we have actually had a really good response so far. We actually just launched it a week ago today. And we already have, I think, 16 advocates already signed up, which is really good for like our size, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a program that we're looking forward to growing consistently. And it's just people like submitting their stories. And then through a process, we eventually will get their story out there on our social media. And like there are avenues that we are going to look to grow upon this. Like maybe you've been doing Zoom calls where we interviewed people as well. That's definitely something we're looking into right now. But yeah, it's really exciting. And like there's already been a great response from our community. And it's getting more stories out there. That's the base of what we like to do. And yeah, we're really happy to have it started. That's for sure.
Awesome. What would you say? I mean, you said you're collecting a lot of these people's stories. What are some commonalities in the stories? What are people really searching for the most? What's kind of that missing thing that these people aren't getting that you guys are helping with?
I wouldn't necessarily, it's something like they aren't getting. I think it's more actually geared towards what they want to do about it. That's kind of the angle. We like, obviously there are things that people go through, but that's completely like unique to them. I wouldn't say there's a lot of commonalities in that. The most common thing that I'm noticing is that people want to do something about it, which is really exciting because that's obviously what we try and inspire within people. Our slogan or mission statement as well is called challenge the stigma. So like getting people involved in that is something that we've been really passionate about, and they have been really passionate about it within the application form. So
Awesome.
And I think to add to that, we have made it very clear when it comes to being an advocate, it's not just people who've suffered concussions, but who've been around people close to them who've been affected by concussions. Because when you're going through it, a lot of these people, they can't articulate what they're feeling. They can't express why they're not normal. And it plays a toll on their relationships. So I think for a lot of people, it's the lack of understanding that they have towards concussions until it happened to them. And now they're hoping to kind of share their experiences so that other people can be a bit more mindful when someone says they have a headache or they're not feeling right and they hit their head, that there's a serious problem, rather than, oh, just throw some dirt on it, or you know what I mean? There's been this whole misconception. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people have been gravitating to.
Very good. And so if people wanted to get involved or support what you guys are doing, what are some ways that they'd be able to do that?
They can just start by connecting with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, like pretty much all of our social media. And then once they're in touch with our social media, they can pretty easily find our website. We have it linked in nearly all of our bios. So once they get to our website, like the one on our Instagram page right now, the link we have is directly to our advocates section. So once they're in our website, they can check out everything we have. We have information, we have our story, we have other people's stories on there. We have some testimonial videos, as I mentioned earlier. And yeah, just like a space where they can learn people's stories and just unique ways in which people have went through the injury.
And if, being an advocate isn't something that necessarily is appealing to a person that's listening to this, just come and DM us and share your story. I think that's, at its core, what HeadsUpCAN represents is just an open space to talk about what you went through with no judgment. And I think another element is the fact that we are encouraging all sorts of remedies and all sorts of types of recovery, rather than just, this is what you have to do to heal your brain, because everyone is affected differently. So to create this open space, like we'll post like memes occasionally. Like we're very unique with our content to optimistic look on concussions, and that you can not only get better but be better from your recovery. So just to kind of come and share your story and not feel any judgment or any type of negativity towards how you felt during your experience.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's very needed right now for these people. So we're here in Chicago. You guys are up in Canada. What kind of resources are readily available for TBI sufferers up in Canada? How easy is it to get care that is needed?
So in Canada, there are definitely a few go-to resources that we like to direct people to. So it's Parachute Canada. They're an organization that specializes in injury prevention and knowledge translation. So they have been funded by the government to launch essentially the guidelines on how to return to play, return to school, and pretty much everything concussion related. So we really trust in their resources and their platform for sure. And it is something that they, like I said, they have received some funding. So they are working on marketing it and getting the news out of their organization. So that's definitely the first place that I would point people to. And then for people who are directly going through it in the moment and they feel like maybe Parachute, like they have really good information, but they want something a little more, or just like another opinion of sorts, then we would direct them to the Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation, which they actually have some really, really good resources. They're very up to date in terms of what we see within the scope of the industry. And they focus on this model of recovery where you don't necessarily keep it, like you don't stay in your room and do nothing for 2 weeks, like how the traditional ways of recovering from a concussion was. You more or less, like you take your 36 hours, let your brain heal and kind of reset your body. And then you start slowly interacting and getting into your daily routine again. And then the way that it was explained to me through their resources was that it's like a scale. So like on this side of the scale is green, and then the middle is yellow, and then the far side is red. You want to be somewhere in between green and yellow every day for how far you're pushing yourself. And then once you get into the red, you went too hard, and then you start to experience your symptoms again. And in the yellow, you are still like feeling things a little bit, but you're to the point where it's not affecting you completely. But then once you get to the red, you have to reset, and then you have to take another 36 hours and kind of start the process over again. But the idea is not to get to red, obviously.
Right.
You just want to slowly integrate into it. But it's definitely a system that helped me. I had my last concussion actually in October of last year. So fairly recent, and that was my 5th one. So that was something that helped me get back on my feet a lot sooner than I was in previous concussions. So
yeah,
I think one of the really cool things about our journey that we've been on is, and to preface it, Canada's been pretty behind in terms of concussions with regards or in comparison to America. We only have one of our provinces has a youth concussion protocol, whereas all 50 states do. And for us, like Ryan and myself, being this new generation that looks at concussions a lot differently, it's been really cool as we progress and as HeadsUpCAN has started to get a bit more credibility within the industry, to see all these different efforts that are going on in Canada to expedite that process. And seeing a bunch of people understand that we've been, too behind on this for too long, and that there's something that needs to be done. Because to kind of give a bit more clarity, in Ontario, where Ryan and I are both from, when we were playing sports, there was no youth concussion protocol system. And it wasn't until a girl in high school passed away from second impact syndrome playing rugby, where people started to realize, why don't we have something that could have prevented this? Like, how could have? So for us being on this journey, it's been really insightful and really cool to not only see the difference, but be an active participant in that difference.
Awesome.
And even to that point too, like, we were in high school while this was happening. So like, unfortunately, the girl, she passed away from second impact syndrome. Like, we were going through high school, so it directly affected the morale within our school system. And we felt that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a really unique perspective for us to kind of grow up and go to university together, and then have everything manifest the way it did.
Yeah, absolutely. So as your kind of influence grows and you're getting more and more advocates and testimonials and participation, what would you like to achieve with HeadsUpCAN? Like, what's the long-term goal that you really hope that you can, make an impact on the world with this organization?
It's actually funny because I think Ryan and I might have different answers for this, because it's such a large scope. For me, it's always been to educate and empower the next generation. And I suffered my concussion in football. I still love the sport. I still love everything it represents. But there's a lot of unnecessary suffering and a lot of tendencies that I think can be changed. So changing the culture of how we look at concussions and understanding, that this is an invisible injury. And I've spoken in front of, students, hockey camps, and like kids that are 10 years old. And it's tough because you don't know how much they're going to resonate with, but to kind of break it down to a very simple, and again, I'm not a scientist, but our brain is such a complex organism with hundreds of billions of neurons, that if we don't take this seriously, if we don't care about our brain health when we're young, it could lead to a lot, worse scenarios down in the future. So that's the biggest thing that I try and achieve with Heads Up, is just at its fundamental core, educate people that, this isn't something you can just, like a bruised elbow, you can just come back in a week and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something you need to seriously take the right time to recover.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just, I want to be like Heads Up to become a network of people that is the awareness on concussions. Like, we are the area where people will look to and become a national leader, starting national, of course, in just sharing people's experiences with the injury, and therefore looking to eliminate the stigma surrounding the injury. Because the more people's stories that we share, and the more that people know about the injury and the uniqueness of each of the injuries that, within TBI, I think that the more people will get knowledgeable about it, and the more that it will be accepted, and the more that people will have empathy for people going through it. Yeah. So it's just building the platform to what we want it to be. It's just all about challenging the stigma, and changing the culture. That's all it is.
Right. And I think you're both right on track with that. People just don't take it seriously enough, both those who are injured, like I think Seth was mentioning, and then maybe those who are, around people who have been injured, like you were talking about, Ryan, is, people just don't take it seriously one way or the other. And what you guys are doing is perfect, because it's really helping raise that awareness, like you said, and hopefully people will begin to take it seriously and realize that this is the most important organ in your body, and that you do have to take care of it. It's not like stubbing your toe. It's a little more complicated than that. So yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think again, sorry to cut in, but also showing the, not that all the negativity of concussion, that people can recover and that you can return to sport and return to learn, but you have to understand the process. And I think that's to kind of build on and elaborate on the last question, but also getting into more events and showing, like we did a charity concert because we also feel that music is a great remedy and can really help with, relaxation for the brain, and just kind of brought people together in like a very fun, engaging way, and showing that, understanding the severity of concussions, but also understanding you can get better if you really take it seriously, your recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just about finding unique ways to engage with people, and like finding like new norms. So like Seth said, we had the charity concert, and what we really pride ourselves in is having a completely different take on spreading awareness. And so we always look for unique avenues where, like, not necessarily it's been done before, but like just ways that people can resonate with it on a different level, and maybe think of it differently and just normalize it. I think that's the biggest thing. So like bringing awareness to a setting that wouldn't necessarily even talk about concussions or even consider talking about it. Just bringing it to the forefront that way. I find it's very helpful.
Yeah. So based on both of your experiences so far, what would the best kind of message of hope along those lines, what could you give to somebody who's currently struggling with what you guys have gone through?
I think the biggest thing that I can tell anyone that's suffering from a concussion is that they're not alone. At no point in this process do they have to feel like they have to take it on themselves, because to understand that your brain isn't 100%. So even in the best of circumstances, dealing with something like this, like, is a really daunting task. And, mentally, like, emotions get involved, your sleep gets messed up. There's a lot of culminating factors that make you not feel like yourself. So you don't have to go through it alone. And whether it's someone close to you that you can confide in, or you want to reach out to us, having people who are empathetic to what you're going through and knowing that people are actually empathetic to what you're going through is, I think, a really big thing for people to understand. Because in this invisible injury, you feel like you're just in darkness, right? There's so much that I think people, when you try to explain to them, can't really fathom or can't comprehend because they've never had a concussion. But we are trying to create that community that shows support and shows that, we're fighting this together.
Yeah.
And yeah, really, it's just about getting people to, like, for me personally, when I went through it, just being honest with myself with what I was feeling was the first step I had to get over, really. Just like acknowledging the way you feel and being like honest with yourself and accepting that. Like, it's okay to feel the way that you do, because that's what you're going through right now. You don't need to hide it. You just have to take charge of it and then be open about it. And it is really tough to like maybe say things that are just going on inside your head. But if you are finding it tough to converse with the people around you about it because they may lack some understanding, you can always have a free space to come and talk to us, whether it be online. You can even DM our personal accounts. Like we are here to make you feel more comfortable throughout that experience. And we are happy to do so, because that's what we wish we had while we were going through it.
Awesome. And then before we close for today, I want to give you guys the opportunity again to share how people can reach you and any other projects that you'd want people to look out for.
Yeah, so they can reach us. I think we're at HeadsUpCAN, so heads up and then just CAN, anywhere on social media. We're pretty active on Instagram, Facebook, actually really every social media, I would say. And we just started up our Twitter, I think a few months ago, and we have some fire tweets out there for sure. But yeah, so at HeadsUpCAN for sure. And then our website is www.headsupcan.ca. So we keep it pretty simple. You just look for HeadsUpCAN anywhere on the internet and you should be able to find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on today. I think the world is a much better place because of the work you're doing in it. So I really appreciate what you're doing for all these patients out there. So
thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the work you do too as well.
Thank you. Well, this has been your host, Dr. Joe from the Neuro Wellness Podcast. Be well.